Hello and welcome back to the Cfctalk podcast. I've got another special guest joining me today, a Chelsea fan and a Chelsea fan who is probably as sad as I am today after that performance. And I know I start off the podcast with a couple of things that I always say, and a lot of people have pointed out in saying that I always say, "Oh, we started the game well," but tonight I don't think I'll be saying that because honestly, that was a performance I hated every single one of those 90 minutes. So welcome to the podcast. And before we get into it, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but welcome to the podcast, S3E. If you don't know who S3E is, he runs his own channel on YouTube, as well as a very, a well-known person in the Chelsea community in terms of football and cricket as well. Make sure to check him out. I'll leave all of his social media pages in the description below. But S3E, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing? Tough day. Chelsea 0, Zagreb 1, a loss that we probably didn't expect today. Let's start with that.
So first of all, thank you so much, brother, to have me on today. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be on Cfctalk pod. And I think with Chelsea at the moment, nothing is really surprising. Like we can lose to Leeds 3-0, we can lose to Southampton, and I absolutely get smashed. We can pull a great display against Tottenham, like against some rivals. And today was an absolute story, which I think is better. I really don't know how to say, because I think if we go on a rant, it could be literally going on for a whole day or 24 hours, because that was that bad. It was hassle. We could have played for 3 hours, 4 hours. So really, mate, I was doing really well. And if we had a stream before the match, I think we would have been in a great mood. But sadly, Chelsea have spoiled our mood, and I think it's going to be a tough day today.
Honestly, completely agree with that. I think looking back at the game and before we get into the individual performances and talk about the players themselves, overall, I didn't see, and I know I'm repeating myself for those who watch the podcast regularly, that there's no intent in this team. There's no character in this team, or I'm not seeing someone stand out or a few of those players pull up their socks when you're a goal down and fight and be aggressive for that win, whether it's against Zagreb, whether it's against United, whether it's against PSG. I don't care who the team is. A win is a win, and every game has to be a win when you go on the field. It's like Mourinho used to say, I'm not asking for a win, but we cannot lose. We cannot lose. So a game where we generally did struggle. And getting into it, firstly, the lineups that were announced: Aubameyang making his debut for Chelsea, Fofana making his Champions League debut for Chelsea. Obviously, Thiago Silva not being part of the squad was expected because of the game time he's had. What are your quick thoughts on us starting with a back five and not going with a back four, and then with Azpilicueta fitting into that back three at the right position, and then James at right wing back?
I think for me, I was a bit surprised with the lineup, because I thought that this could be a time to rest Reece James, because we have Fulham coming up. We have next week Champions League game coming up. And then we have got another match against Liverpool, the biggest match next week. And then James is expected to start for England along with Kyle Walker, Trent rotated. So it made sense for me to drop him. So I was surprised. But the biggest surprise for me was, I think I understood Silva to be rested, because he's nearing 38 years of age, and asking him to play 2 games a week is going to end in a disaster. And I was not surprised, to be honest, with the lineup. But when I saw Mount and Kovacic in a pivot, I knew that it was going to be a long, long day. Like playing Mason Mount and Kovacic in a pivot, and just understanding like what's going on, because in the last game against we played at Stamford Bridge against West Ham, Jorginho was not played, and a lot of people in the Chelsea community thought that Jorginho was dropped because of Declan Rice, Tuchel, and the physical power that West Ham bring in. But today again he was dropped and he was fit. It's like he's not played a lot of game time. And Kovacic, the manager himself, has said that he's going a surgery and he has a bit of problem. He's not underwent a surgery, but he has a bit of injury crisis. So I'm really not understanding that the manager has said one thing, but then he plays Kovacic. It might be due to the crowd, because he's a Croatian and he's a former Dynamo player. But I think I just want to get your opinion on this as well. That why did Mountain Kovacic was a pivot? Because I think that was an absolute disaster.
It is. And I think if I remember correctly, the last time we had Mountain and Kovacic in a pivot was that game we lost under Lampard. And that was when I can't remember. It might have been the FA Cup game. It was, I think, that when we lost it, or one of the others. I exactly can't remember. But the details was the last time we played it was under Lampard, and we've never played with a Mount and Kovacic midfield. You're right in terms of saying that in midfield we have issues. There is no sugarcoating it. And the issues are that, Kante is injury prone. He's not been able to play for us. And since Kante's been out, we've been struggling as a team to stop those counterattacks, stop those balls coming into our defensive third, and for Mendy to make a save. And then in terms of Kovacic as well, he's come back from an injury and he's still not fully fit, but obviously because of the lack of options that we have, we're playing Kovacic, and it's as if we're stuck with Mount, Kovacic, Gallagher, and all of these midfielders, but none of these stand out for me in terms of being the first name on that team sheet. Even as far as Mason Mount, today I just found him to be very poor. Just nothing from him. He wasn't offering a lot in terms of passes, in terms of key passes, or those attacking third passes that he makes to Kai Havertz or the attackers. So obviously that's an issue that wasn't even addressed properly in the transfer window for me, because only last minute did we wake up and say, hold on, we might need someone else in midfield. And it is something that I'm very concerned about. And the fact that Tuchel keeps on saying in press conferences, and even today he said something along the lines of, I'm very angry with myself, I'm very angry with the team's performance. But why aren't we seeing that reflect in the team? Is it the team unable to perform that the way that Tuchel wants? Is it Tuchel out of ideas and teams have figured out how they play? Because going into Zagreb and analyzing them a little bit, what I realized is their last few games, they play a back four. But tonight they played a back five. And what I looked at as well was Premier League teams doing the same thing. Against Chelsea, what they're doing is playing a back five and essentially cancelling out whatever powers Chelsea have in a back five and then countering them. So, which is why I kind of I want to focus on the back four and back five situation and what you think of that. Maybe we go into a back four, have more attacking options since our attackers aren't good at finishing or we're not creating enough chances.
For me, the problem is, I think, yes, I do believe a back three has been figured out. But the problem for me is, like, I think last year also and year before when Tuchel came in 2021 January, I think teams have always played back five against us in some way, and we have exploited that. I think in the last some games as well, against Southampton, we started with the back four. In some games, Thomas Tuchel has been slowly but steadily playing back four. I think I'm not understanding that. Thomas Tuchel's side was one which took 31 clean sheets in his first 50 games as a manager. But right now, we are struggling even to get a one clean sheet, which is very, very rare for Chelsea. Like, I'm not understanding what's going on in that regard, because today, the biggest part of Chelsea and the Thomas Tuchel was that, like he said in his press conference when he was appointed, that I will make a team which nobody wants to play. And under Thomas Tuchel, for the first year, I really saw a side which teams were not happy to play. Right now, we're defensively so open. I think today, the error by Koulibaly was so bad and it was left with Fofana. Now, I really don't know what happened with Fofana. He should be catching up Osset. He's a young player, he's pacey. I don't know why he did not do that. And and again, the same old problem strike in. But the problem is just not scoring, but you have 90 minutes to respond. I think that goal came around 11 to 12 minutes. So you have 78 minutes to respond, plus 8 minutes of additional time. We could not even muster one chance. I heard a commentator in that match saying that Dynamo Zagreb have looked more likely to score the second goal than Chelsea have looked likely to score equalizer. Our best chance of the game fell to Pulisic at 97th minute when he put the header aside out of the bar. Like, this is just getting ridiculous level. And I want to get your opinion that I think we keep blaming on the manager, which I do understand he can get the best out of attackers and should do more. But are our attackers, Mount, Havertz, Pulisic, Hakim Ziyech, are they good enough for a top attack to be functioning in the best way?
You're right in saying that, because I'm knowing, and obviously it might sound like I'm trying to go along the lines of Tuchel out or maybe replacing the manager, but that's not exactly what I mean when I say that I'm frustrated with the manager, because I am frustrated in terms of I've seen the way Tuchel is. He's managed PSG to a Champions League final. He's managed them to multiple titles in the French league. Borussia Dortmund, the things that he's done with young players there. So Tuchel is someone who's worked with both young players as well as talented players at his previous clubs. And when he came at Chelsea, the way we won that Champions League and the way he set the bar so high, it just seems like now there is no bar. The bar is very low right now in terms of all the fans saying, well, we're not necessarily asking for a Champions League win this year, or a Champions League trophy this year, or a Premier League trophy. All we're asking for is maybe a solid top 3 finish or a top 4 finish, where we don't have to take the last game. We don't have to take it to the last game, and we can comfortably be there closing up the gap to the top 2, Liverpool and Man City, like last season. The issue is the issue is with Tuchel is whatever ideas he's got in training don't seem to be reflecting on the pitch. And you're right in saying it's more of a player's fault than Tuchel's fault. Individually, you look at these players and you go, Reece James has these abilities, Mason Mount has these abilities, so on and so forth for each of the players that we have. But combining them together, the manager is responsible to take those individual, skills that each player has and then combining them as a team, and you've got a great team. And that's how great teams are built. And the issue with Tuchel, the Tuchel is facing right now is, and we spoke about this last week with Ankit on the podcast, saying there is no core to this team. No one comes to mind when you say, other than obviously the two, Sterling and Reece James, you don't go and say, right, these are my players that I want to build a team around. And that's because when it comes to defensive, and as you mentioned in defense, look, we've spent so much. Fofana is coming, Koulibaly's coming. Yes, I understand we've lost two of our great defenders from the past 2 seasons, Rudiger and Christensen, who have been great for us. And Kukurea is coming as well. And now you've suddenly got this influx of defenders, and still we're unable to keep a clean sheet. The stat that you mentioned, 24 goals in the first 50 games, and now we've conceded 53 goals in this last 50. So it's clearly something has gone wrong. And we can see it's not just this season, it's something to do with last season as well. This season, we've only had 10 games, 9 games overall over the 3 competitions that we're playing right now. But even towards the end of last season, we were struggling. I remember that game against, what was it, Aston Villa? Was it the last one that we had? We lost, I think that was the one. And it was a struggling performance. We conceded 2 goals there as well. So for Tuchel to be frustrated, I'm not going to have that. I don't want Tuchel to say I'm frustrated with this team, because it's his job to make sure each player does what he's meant to be doing. And which is exactly what I don't understand about Tuchel in press conferences. He says one thing, the other thing's happening in games. He says one thing, and then in terms of lineups, we don't see much of a change. We see the same starting lineup as we've done before. So for me, that's a big issue. And defensively, obviously, as you mentioned, we could score 50 goals, but if we're conceding 2 or 3 goals every game, then there's not much of a point in finding out that. But in terms of talking about the midfield, the Kovacic and Mount situation, going in depth into that, nothing. There's absolutely nothing in that midfield for me. I don't know what you think about that.
I think for me, I'm also a bit in this term. I back Thomas Tuchel, and I think it's very premature for people to be criticizing him. But constructively, you can criticize him, and I think constructively, you have to ask him a question that Thomas is more aware than us. He sees his players in training. He sees them in all the performances. I think we are not idiots, and I think no one is. Everybody knows that Kante can only play like 1 game in 5. Kovacic has always been a player that for the whole season misses like 10 games. You know that Jorginho is getting to an age of 31, 32, and he cannot play in a back 4. He needs extra protection. So why did Thomas Tuchel did not demand from Todd Bowley earlier that I need a midfielder more importantly than a centre back? I think after the Leeds match where we lost 3-0, he came out and he said that Chelsea did not need to sign a lot of players. We have Conor Gallagher, we have Loftus-Cheek, we have Jorginho, Kante, Kovacic. We do not need a midfielder. But after that, 1 week later, we lost to Southampton, and you went in the conference and said, yes, we need a midfielder. Then why 1 week earlier you were not saying that, and now you said that? You put the club in trouble in negotiations, and then you only had to be left with Zakaria. Now, I think our whole season depends on Zakaria and Aubameyang, because if they turn out to be great, I think we can end the season in the top 3 easily. But if Zakaria and Aubameyang turn bad, I think it could be a long, long season. I think on the midfield crisis, I think a bit of blame has to go to the previous regime as well, because in the previous regime, if we did extend the contract of Rudiger and did not find over small wages, we gave him the 200k, we gave Christensen the extension of contract. We might just not need to spend the money on Fofana, Koulibaly, and we could have spent that money on Declan Rice, Frankie de Jong. People have to also remember that Jorginho is running down his contract, Kante is running down his contract, and I think it's best for all parties to part with each other, especially Kante. I love Kante. Kante, I think after the last game of the season last year, when we won the last game, I think Thomas Tuchel made a statement that Kante is Chelsea's Kevin De Bruyne, Kante is Chelsea's Virgil van Dijk. But if a player only plays 1 game in 2 months, He will never turn out to be a Virgil van Dijk or a Kevin De Bruyne. And with N'Golo Kante, as much as we know you do not get a player of his ability, what's the benefit to rely on him and then only have him available for just one match in 2 months? Our best performance this season have come with Kante in a team, and then he got injured, and then everything has fallen apart. We need to find a solution very quick. If it means January signing in Alvarez, I think we have to get that, because midfield wise, I think there's a bit of misprofiling by Tuchel as well. Conor Gallagher is not a pivot player. Mount is not a pivot player. And right now we are struggling. And if Chelsea keep on struggling, letting Billy Gilmer go, letting all these players go, will turn out to be putting more pressure on the manager. I do want to get your opinion as well, because I just don't understand that how can we solve this midfield. I think for this whole season we just might need to keep the same midfield.
Look, I think Chelsea will target Alvarez. That is something that's a given, and Fabrizio Romano was on this as well. I know we're moving towards the transfers and all that sort of stuff, which there's still a long time to go with the World Cup coming in as well. But Alvarez is someone Chelsea will have to get, and I don't think anyone at Chelsea's board or even the manager can sit down and say we don't need Alvarez. We need Alvarez really badly with the midfield that we have right now. We need them. We need him really badly, and it's because I'd rather have a Alvarez play maybe not have the greatest of performances than an injured Kovacic, than an injured Kante, or someone who's not fully fit for the game. And that is my issue right now, because we don't have so many options to play with, that we're just having to do with whatever we've got, something that Liverpool had in the opening weeks with the injuries they had. And realistically, they've done their part, and they've signed a midfielder now that they needed. Thiago is going to be back for them in a few weeks as well, and then Liverpool's going to be up and running. But for Chelsea, I look at this team and I go, yes, maybe Kante is going to return, but I look at him and go, the game management with Kante is going to be very serious. Is going to have to be very crucial for Chelsea this season. We can't, like, as you said, 1-2 games a month. We can't have him play against a relegation side. We can't have him play in a Carabao Cup games. Obviously, we've got Man City this year, but I'm just giving you an example. So Chelsea will have to be very careful with how they deal with Kante. And if I remember correctly, he should be available to us after the Salzburg game, meaning right in time for the Liverpool game. But it's also the fact that we don't want to play him 90 minutes in that game. How do we handle him? And so we need to be very careful with how we deal with Kante. And as you said, you're right in saying that we need to look for options in midfield, because Kovacic is turning 29 this year. Jorginho is past his prime. Kante, he's in his prime, but obviously the injuries is a big issue in the way that he gets injured so easily. So we need to be looking at options, and we need to be looking at options that fit Tuchel's style of play. You have to remember Kovacic came in before Tuchel came in. You have to remember Jorginho, Kante. Every single midfielder we have is someone who's been here before Tuchel's come in. I look at players Tuchel's added, and I don't see a lot of them this year. This is his first transfer window where he's actually got to spend a lot. I mean, obviously, the Lukaku situation happened, but other than that, this is probably the first proper transfer window he's had to have a look at what the options he's got. But yeah, in terms of our attacking players, I want to move to that now and talk about the issues there. Aubameyang, I'm a bit disappointed. Obviously his debut, not the worst player on the team, I would say, but very disappointed with the fact that, yes, maybe he was trying to feed into his players a little bit too much. I think as a striker, you have to be sometimes selfish. You have to go for those shots. And Aubameyang, yes, he was in some tight positions, but take the shot for me. Rather than a pass and a miss or a pass and then they managed to clear it out. And there were some situations, I don't know if you remember, but 3 or 4 passes that Aubameyang made, and they ended up being cleared out because the other player wasn't able to get there in time. So what are your quick thoughts on Aubameyang and the way our attack's going in terms of Sterling, Aubameyang, and Havertz playing up front rather than Mason Mount, who plays on the right wing?
I think that Mason Mount, the thing is, bar this match, Mason Mount has been being front three, and he's still been very disappointing this season. I was a bit surprised. Like, I think if you really think that, why is Mason Mount and Kai Havertz undroppable? Like, you can give Pulisic 3 or 4 games to prove himself. I think Pulisic is a player that has not led up to the potential that we know him of. And if the manager does not like him, or he does not fit the plan, then you either let him go and do not waste your time, or you either play him 3 or 4 matches or show the trust that you've shown to Mount and Havertz. Now, with Mason Mount, I think he has been in a bad form this season. I still trust him. He's a very, very talented player. But I don't know why it's going on, and the manager needs to be a bit more strong. I think with Mason Mount, I think Mason knows that he's undroppable in the squad, and the manager has to show that there's a fight for the competition as well. On Aubameyang, I think it's a very much shame that we are so much right now bad attackingly that we have to make a player with a broken jaw wear a mask and immediately come to play as well. Why are we in this situation? First of all, we have paid 60 million for Christian Pulisic. We have paid 72 million for Kai Havertz. 35 million we have paid for Hakim Ziyech. Mount is free. 47 million around for Raheem Sterling. We have paid around, and then we have some other players as well. Conor Gallagher, who is free. We have paid so much money to only bring a player with a broken jaw straight away after a long time. A player who 1 week, 2 week back suffered a very, very bad incident, which I hope will never happen to anyone. He got a broken jaw, got injury, and straight away has come to London, not even a match fitness. And the manager is so much like he's so much irritated with the attacking options he's got that he has straight away thrown in him. And I think this is a bit of bad by the manager on Broha. The player in the last 2 games has come on, played well. Broha had a very good game against Southampton, made a change against West Ham as well. Why did you give a kid a chance? You gave him a 6-year contract. He's a player who has been training with you, has a match fitness. Why do you straight away put Aubameyang in the team when he has a broken jaw and he's not had a training? What message does it send to Broha, especially when he keeps seeing on Mount starting over him who does not perform, Harvard starting over him? And right now, what I see in team right now is there's a lot of unhappy faces. Ziyech wanted to go to Ajax, we kept him, and now we have a player who is not happy at the squad. He's also a player who was a very, very good friend Lukaku, and I think that's showing right now. The players are very, very unhappy. Lukaku was a tip of the iceberg. I think Hakim Ziyech is not happy with the management. Pulisic has been making it clear. I think you can even see with tweets and everything. I think his family members liking the tweets of all the stuff, and that's all the not right in my opinion. Chelsea, you can see along with that the frustration of Broha as well. That at some point he was not extended the contract. Now he has, but he was not ready to extend contract. And I think he was very close to sign for West Ham, and this Kamaka happened, and that's where I think he agreed to stay at Chelsea. So right now, I think there's a lot of unhappy players at Chelsea. Now it's up to Tuchel to make them happy, or else we have a massive, massive problem on our hands, because you can have a low quality player, but you cannot have a player who is not ready to pull a shift in and give the best to his team. I do want to know your opinion, but in my opinion, right now we are in trouble in attack, and the manager has to find a solution. Even if I do not agree these attackers are so good that people make it out to be, I think many people go about Jurgen Klopp will get the best out of them. I don't think so. A manager cannot come here and teach you 2 yards finishing. Manager cannot come and teach you half chances. Manager cannot come and teach Hakim Ziyech to not hit the first man 3 or 4 times. But what a manager can teach is get best out of them, try to get them motivated and get them up. I do want to know your opinion that what can we do, because for me, at least for a year, I think it's very difficult to solve anything.
I completely echo what you say on this. I think it is you've exactly hit the right spot in what's wrong at Chelsea. We've got players who don't want to play for Chelsea. Pulisic, who should have been loaned out, and he should have been given out on loan, because if there's someone who doesn't want to play, just let them go. I don't care. I mean, yes, obviously, it is going to cost us financially, but at the end of the day, would you rather have a player who doesn't want to give in his 100% for Chelsea, or someone just who'll just come in because it's in his contract to do it, or he has to do that? So with Ziyech as well, same situation. When until the deadline day, it's unclear what the situation is with Ziyech. You sit with the player, you talk to them, you understand how they're feeling, what they want from this, why they want to leave this team, and so on and so forth. And that is the issue right now. We can blame our attackers, we can blame our midfielders, we can play our defenders. None of them, I say this again and again, none of them at Chelsea right now seem like players who want to fight for trophies. And this is not the team that Tuchel wants, obviously. And we know what Tuchel's capable of. So I say this again, not going to try and say Tuchel's the issue here. I'm talking about players and their mentality. And if I know someone who can change it, it's Tuchel. So I want to give him the time to do it. I feel like he can bring the best out of our players. We need to understand that, we have to try and make the best of every situation we can. And now until January, we have no other option than to just stick with Kovacic and the midfield that we've got right now, and Jorginho. Obviously, we need to think about other aspects as well. And and one of the ones that I have been thinking of, and the one that comes to my mind is why Chelsea don't press. Have you? I'm not exactly sure if we're gonna align on this, but I feel like Chelsea don't press enough compared to, let's say, Liverpool. I would say who are the ideal pressers, and they like to really push their backline. We were doing that before we conceded that goal, and suddenly, bang, that goal goes in, heads down. No one knows what they're doing, and it's just play out the 90 minutes and take the loss and go back home. So a very disappointing performance, and a lot of negatives to take than positives, but I'm sure Tuchel will drill it down to the players tonight and tomorrow. And as he said, tomorrow was a scheduled break for players, which Tuchel has cancelled. So if it has worked for Man United, it might work for Chelsea. We really need to get going if we really want to get somewhere this season, because ideally the last thing we want as Chelsea fans is to end up out of the top four. And we know the struggles Man United have had in terms of signing players and keeping players at the club. Specifically talking about Ronaldo here, as well as Frankie De Jong, who didn't want to join United or stay at United because of the fact that they don't play Champions League football right now. So in terms of Chelsea and their future, if we really want to talk about next season, then it's making the top four. But obviously a very disappointing performance, and something that we will have to move on from, because it is Fulham this weekend. Games are coming thick and fast, and as we mentioned, Chelsea don't have a lot of options in any areas other than, I guess, in the back four or the back five that we play. But midweek games all the way up until November, it seems it will be for Chelsea. Fulham, do you see a squad rotation happening again? Thiago Silva maybe coming back in, and maybe Broya starting this one rather than Aubameyang?
For me at the moment, I do see Aubameyang start, because I think Broha should have started today. So I do see Aubameyang start. I think for me, I do want to see some changes being doing. The manager has to be a bit more hard. I think we need to play back three, because right now defensively we are an absolute shambles, and playing a back four I think will be a disaster. I think Silva being back with Fofana and Koulibaly might give a bit of calm presence to the back three, which Aspi was not able to do today. I think Mendy will be back, but I want Kepa to continue, because Mendy has been in a very bad form. And I think Mendy has to be shown that at Chelsea, you fight for places, and if you're not good, you are droppable. I think Jorginho has to come in for this game, and Kovacic has to play there, and you can take Kovacic off by 60th minute if the match is
Can
finished. Which
I know I'm going to interrupt you.
yeah,
I'm sorry for that, but I just want to add on and say, now looking back, I looked at Kepa's performance today, and looking back at Mendy's performances, both goalkeepers are doing a great job. Honestly, a great job. The only issue is we put them in situations where they can't do much. You can't have a one-on-one with the goalkeeper. You can't have the opposition overloading the goalkeeper. And that's what Chelsea's doing right now. Some of the goals that we've conceded, if you look back, you realize, hold on, if Jorginho didn't make that mistake, Tottenham wouldn't have scored that goal. If today Fofana or Koulibaly would have cleared it, no goal again. And in some of those situations against West Ham as well, that first goal, if we cleared our lines properly, Mendy wouldn't have been in that situation. Mendy's shirt would not have been pulled down. Obviously, we can go on and on, but looking back, I feel like last podcast as well, me going after Kepa and Mendy and that having that conversation just feels useless when none of our defenders are putting in their shift and showing us what it's like to defend, other than obviously Thiago Silva, because coming out of every game, we always talk about how good Thiago Silva's stats look, how good Thiago Silva looked, so compared to everyone else on the pitch. So there are questions to be asked of Fofana for the lack of defending today, Koulibaly as well, and the fact that our players are not as aggressive and not as aggressive as, I guess, the Chelsea defense of the past. I remember John Terry, Gary Cahill, these guys being at center back, and then you've got the left back and the right back with them to support them. Ivanovic used to be in there as well. We're talking about players who would do anything and everything to make sure that ball doesn't end in the back of the net, compared to these defenders who don't seem like they've got the same aggression as we used to in the past.
I think for me on Mendy, I think he should have saved the Southampton one, especially the first one. Even if I think Højbjerg one was an absolute disaster by Jorginho, but he has to do better in my opinion. I think Mendy has been struggling even in his shot stopping, so that's down to Mendy as well. But I think the biggest problem, as you have put it very, very well, is the way our defense is going on. We used to be a team that used to be difficult to play against. Right now, I think Thomas Tuchel was not mincing his words when he said after the Southampton defeat He said that Chelsea are a very easy team right now to play. The biggest worry for me, as you have put it very, very well, is when this team goes 1-0 down. Mauricio Sarri said it. He said that these players just don't want to fight. And it feels like whenever we go 1-0 down, heads go down, which is a worry. You have so much time to recover. United on Sunday had a 1-0 lead. They lost it, but within 3 minutes they scored. Our players will have put their heads down and we will have conceded the second, and that's where the problem is. Still, the season is still a lot left. There can be still a very good week as well. We can beat Fulham. We can beat the next Champions League opponent. We can beat Liverpool, and everything will seem look good. United 2 weeks back lost to Brentford 4-0, and now you see where they are. So times can change, but the problem with Chelsea is the same mistakes are being repeated that we were seeing from February, March, Carabao Cup final. We saw chance after chance being missed. Mason Mount having a big bad day on that day. Then we had another game against Real Madrid. First game should have beaten them. Mistakes by Mendy, horrific mistakes. Misses by Havertz, misses by Lukaku. Next match again misses by Havertz. Again Chelsea defensive error. Kante making that error, and we got knocked out. Then we played Liverpool in another game in the FA Cup final. Another miss by Romelu Lukaku. Another miss by Marcus Alonso. We had chances to wrap the game, but we didn't take them. And then on penalties, we lost. This has been continuing for the last 3, 4, 5 months. And today, again, this has happened. What happened today, Zagreb, happened to us against Zenit as well last year. Against Zenit, we struggled against Zenit as well last year. And we got 3 goals by Timo Werner, I believe, in that game. And then 88th minute, it was Zenit 3, Chelsea 3. And again, we make an error. I think the most saddest point for a Chelsea fan is when he saw this group, he saw Dynamo Zagreb being an opponent. A Chelsea fan is more afraid to play Zagreb, Fulham, Leeds, Southampton, as compared to playing Liverpool, Tottenham. You give me Liverpool any day of the week over Fulham, and that says something about this Chelsea team. They can pull a performance. These players are not bad players. You cannot win a Champions League just by fluke. You do not do that things. You cannot reach 2 cup finals by fluke. But there are some massive problems. And on the Fulham team, on the goalkeeper, I'm fine. Anyone plays. But my humble opinion is in the midfield, it has to be Jorginho Kovacic. But I think, in my humble way, Chilwell has to start the game. But the front three, a statement has to be made. I think Aubameyang has to play that game. I think Broha has to also play with Aubameyang, and we should play Sterling. I will love a shape where we can put Sterling as a cam, Aubameyang, Broha playing as a 2 strikers, and then James and Chilwell playing as 2 wingers. I think that might offer Chelsea more bodies into the box, because James putting in crosses, Aubameyang being up there with Broha would be good today. I knew today Aubameyang had no match fitness, but when you're 1-0 down, you need to have 2 strikers on the pitch. I think Tuchel has to do something. He has to take some steps against Mount, Havertz, Pulisic, and all the other attackers, especially Mount, who has been performing not very badly for the last 5 games. Or else, I think Scott is only going to get more unhappy, which could be a massive problem.
No, not Leeds. Sorry, Fulham has to be a statement of a performance. It can't be one of those dragging 90 minutes that we've seen from Chelsea in a 1-0 win. This has to be a statement of a performance where every single player on the pitch has to show intent, has to show their passion for Chelsea. It's no longer going to work as if you've performed well over the last 20 games, you can come into the first team without even trying. In terms of Mason Mount coming in, yes, he's been brilliant for us, but he's struggled. And when a player struggles, he needs to be on the bench. I'm sorry to say this, whether it's Mount, whether it's anyone on that pitch for Chelsea, anyone there is going to come off, and that's pretty much it. And the issue, yes, I agree that. On the other hand, there's also the issue of, yes, we can take Mount off, but who do we bring on? Because Pulisic has been performing exactly the same as Mount, maybe worse. Ziyech has been doing the exact same as either of those two that I've mentioned right now. So there isn't a player off the bench that we can bring on and say maybe he can put in a shift for us. So yes, you're right in saying maybe this is a system change that's required in terms of us only creating with wing backs. It's old now. Everyone knows, how do you want to defend against Chelsea? Just pull up a few people on Reece James, cover up the striker that's inside the box, whoever it is, and bang, you've now managed to defend those crosses in. Whereas Chelsea don't really have the creativity to create from midfield. They don't have the creativity to maybe pass it inwards and go with a low cross. Maybe just pass it into the box. Maybe run around players, do some skill shots. So nothing too much other than obviously Reece James crosses it in. If it gets to the striker, goal. If it doesn't get to the striker, let's try it again. That's what's happening right now. So I do want to see a change in that. Obviously, the Mount and Kovacic pivot isn't working with Kante injured. There isn't much of an option, and I won't lie. I have a very bad feeling, and I say this, and I don't. I really do hope this is not true. I don't want to see um, him playing right wing back, Ruben Loftus-Cheek again. I have a very bad feeling that Tuchel in this whole process of, oh, let me change tactics. I feel like Tuchel might go with a back five again. Loftus-Cheek as a right wing back, maybe Reece James as a right center back, or rest Reece James, and then in that midfield again we'll have issues. So I do not want to see that at all. I want to see players play in that in their positions, regardless of what formation we go. For all I care, play a back three or a back four, as long as you've got players in the positions that you want. But yeah, you're right in saying Jorginho and Kovacic may be in that midfield, but I mean, Kovacic being unfit, it's highly likely going to be either Conor Gallagher or Loftus-Cheek coming in into that Kovacic position. And moving on from that, I think we've talked a lot about the negatives of Chelsea. Obviously, a lot of positives to come, I will say, from Chelsea. This team, as Shrey said, it's capable of doing a lot more than what we expect. If you expect a top four from this team, trust me, with the core like this, with the youngsters that we have, we can achieve amazing things. This is I will say this, if coached properly, if the players are informed, this team is as capable of beating Man City as Chelsea can be. I think, in my opinion, need to get a few things right, show intensity in games, pressure the opponent, don't let them settle into this game, because Zagreb, as much as we were dominating at the start, not dominating, but as in we were in control at the start. They grew into the game and eventually took the game out of our hands, and they were in control and we lost control. So we will have to try and do something against Fulham. It's going to be a big game. But Shrey, right before we end this discussion on football, and what are your quick score predictions and maybe your goal scorers for Fulham Fulham that day?
I think we have to send a statement out. I think right now I gave a prediction for today as well, 3-0, and all is going to be right now. You want to be positive as a fan. You want to say 3-0 Chelsea, 4-0 Chelsea. But right now, this team does not even offer us a guarantee of a victory. And Fulham have been one of the best promoted side in the league this year. They are looking good. The manager is looking good. Mitrovic is in the form of his life. He's continuing that. Palinia has been a massive addition. And Palinia in the midfield against Jorginho Kovacic is going to be a great battle. I think Robinson is doing a good job of Fulham at the left. Even a Kenny Tete, I think who's starting over him, is doing a good job right now. You go towards their front three, and right now they're looking a very, very functional team. Andres Pereira is doing a good job for Manchester United. And I think Leno is a good keeper as well in terms of shot stopping. I think they are going to be difficult tests. Away from home, Craven Cottage, crowd up for it. This is not the same Fulham we used to play earlier, where it used to be a 3-point lane. This is not it. This is not 3-point cottage. This is a very, very important match this time. And I think Tottenham used to be a team, and Fulham used to be a team that we used to call it 3-point cottage, 3-point lane. But this year, I think it's not going to be the case. And Fulham are very good right now. I think the way they played against Liverpool, even against Tottenham, even Arsenal, I think all the teams have been playing better football than us. And I think that's a massive, massive concern. I think the biggest concern that US had for me is the mentality drop. Whenever we go 1-0 down, we drop. And I'm telling you, if we lose this game or a draw this game, the negativity in the camp, the players is all going to blow the bubble. I don't want it to happen. I don't want to repeat of the contest season of 17-18 where everything just falls off. It just takes one bad defeat for everyone to get away, everyone to have a fight, and the whole dressing room gets broken. We need unity. We need 2 or 3 matches with clean sheets and easy victories. And I can tell you, when this side plays in confidence, they are one of the best in Europe. But problem is, right now, this side is not in confidence. They're not trusting their skill, and all is very disjointed. We need a victory, and convincing victory doesn't mean a 3-0, 4-0. Convincing victory can even mean a 2-0. We finish our chances, we keep a clean sheet. So I'm being a bit positive. I'm going with Fulham 0, Chelsea 2. But right now, I won't even be surprised with a 1-2, 2-2, and that all stuff.
Yep. It's going to be a tough game for Chelsea, and as you said, there is no 3-point lane for us this year. I think every game I go into now, I'll be lost confidence, and I'll take it as a game comes, and I won't have a lot of optimism in terms of Chelsea playing, especially in the next few weeks until we kind of beat these few teams, and then Liverpool's going to have to be another standout performance for Chelsea to make a mark in this season. Well, Shrey, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for giving us your time. I do appreciate the fact that it's so late in India and you're joining me to talk about Chelsea on a tough night like this, where we've just lost our first Champions League game of the group stage, and Group E, where how it stands. Obviously, it's still the first day. Tomorrow results, when they come in, that's when we'll finally know the positions for game week 1. But Chelsea standing fourth in the table. A lot of work to do for Thomas Tuchel and Chelsea to gain a few positions in the Champions League and qualify for the round of 16. But more importantly, in the Premier League coming back this weekend, Fulham versus Chelsea away from home. Hopefully that will be the game that we break our away streak of losing. We've lost 3 games in a row. Which was the last time that happened was in 2020 under Frank Lampard. So something that we really do not want to repeat and want to get over as quickly as possible. But Shrey, once again, thank you very much for coming on. For those of you watching, make sure to follow Shrey on all of his social media pages. We'll link it down below, and follow us on all of our social media pages for the latest news on Chelsea FC as well as updates. Among with that, make sure to like the video if you're watching on YouTube, and follow us on all of our audio and video platforms to add us to your playlist. It really helps us a lot, and it really helps the algorithm a lot. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe.